Um, the thing I want to talk about is actually so serious, I don't even really have a funny intro. Um, I normally no because I'm a little bit of a cynical guy, and because I'm a leftist, there's an incentive to downplay how surprising every bad thing that happens is. You know, remember how when the federal troops started rolling into Portland, some lefties were like, you know, yeah, obviously. Of course, yeah. What do you think the next step of fascism is? Obviously. Marx predicted this 142 years ago. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like there's an incentive for some lefties to like get ahead. You know, they never want to be the liberal that's shocked by the development of fascism. They always want to be the lefty who's like, "Oh yeah, we knew. We knew from the beginning." You know what I'm talking about. Well, this is. See, I'm telling right now, if Trump firebombed Portland, you know, I would be on Twitter being like, anyone could have seen this coming from the material condition. Yeah, but I did not see this coming. I genuinely did not. This is a report from CNBC on how the eviction crisis will impact each state. The eviction crisis is in reference to the fact that with an enormous number of unemployed Americans, a great many of them currently do not have the money to pay rent in 3 days. And these numbers are legitimately shocking. Facing eviction, renter households unable to pay rent and at risk of eviction as a share of total renter households. So the percentages here are of all renter households in the state, how many of them will not be able to pay rent in 3 days. There is not a single state here under 20%. Vermont is the lowest at 22%, an unacceptably high number. And then we have Tennessee there at 50. Oh, we have 59 there as well. Wow. We've been talking about the eviction crisis since COVID-19 ramped up. I mean, we've all known this was coming, but it's here now. It's happening now. And these numbers are unbelievable. This will not have a dampening effect on the existing protests. This will. I've run the calculations. I've done the math. This will not decrease the amount of social unrest in this country, as it so happens. Now, the blame for this is going to go a lot of directions. Many of these people who are not going to be able to pay rent are poor. Well, obviously, you know, and many of them are Republican. And those Republicans are going to be taught, as they already have been, that the fault for their upcoming eviction is, in fact, the Democrats, the Democratic governors, and the stonewallers in Congress who have shut down this country and, as such, have allowed the economy to tank to a position where they're unable to pay rent. Now, this is, of course, insane. First of all, we have not had a federal response to COVID-19 since the measly $1,200 that was sent out 3 months ago. The rest of it, Trump deferred to the governors, who have all done their best. Or not. But no matter what the governors did or did not do, this was inevitable. Even if the governors had not closed down many of the businesses or placed restrictions on those businesses' operations, it would remain a fact that we would have very high unemployment through the course of this pandemic, and that some sort of federal assistance would be necessary in preventing exactly this. But this has happened anyway. The time has come. Many of these people are going to be evicted unless the government does something. Now, the government does have a plan, believe it or not. The Democrats and the Republicans both have competing plans that they are attempting to push through as quickly as possible to avoid this literal civilizational collapse event from happening. I cannot overstate. If this eviction crisis is untended to, it will be one of the greatest internal conflicts in the history of the United States. I would place it second only to the Great Depression, or possibly the Civil War, if we want to put it down at third. I don't think anything else would even come close. In fact, it's possible the repercussions from this could end up having Great Depression-esque effects. Now, there are two plans that are being run through. There's an article here which discusses the relative merits of them both, and they're quite funny. Here, I'll read it out. The Republican plan includes a second round of $1,200 payments and extends additional unemployment payments by $200 a week through September, compared to the current payment of $600 a week. So it's $1,200, and then you get unemployment benefits, but less of them. And it gives money to schools. The Democratic proposal includes protections for people facing eviction, so that's not included in the Republican plan, unemployment insurance, money to feed children, funds to open schools safely, and money for state and local governments. So another instance where neither party is doing enough, but the Republican Party is doing worse. And the funniest thing is that the Republicans have, in their typical sociopathy, managed to earmark a fuck ton of horrible shit into their COVID-19 relief package, including, I shit you not, more corporate benefits, including corporate benefits for meal breaks, meaning that it will be easier for you to make money while drinking a mimosa on your yacht during your 4-hour lunch break in between the 2 meetings you need to have with your shareholders to run through your work for the day. I'm not joking. That's what they actually earmarked that in there. I think they also, if I remember correctly, they also earmarked like a bunch of military equipment, billions and billions of dollars of military equipment. And I think they also earmarked about $2 billion for a new FBI office. And I think I remember reading the FBI didn't want it. The Republicans just wanted to give that to them. I could be wrong on that. That might be me misremembering, you know? Remember that time when Congress spent like $80 trillion whatever, on a bunch of tanks, and the military was like, we literally don't want these tanks. We don't need these tanks. We don't want them. And Congress gave it to them anyway. So now we get to spend billions every year on upkeep. Tanks are expensive to keep in operation, you know, and airplanes too. These are not, when you buy a tank or an airplane, you're not just buying it up front, and you're not just paying for the gas, missiles, ammunition, whatever down the road, and crew costs. The average military vehicle, I'm pretty sure, even during a wartime, spends about half its time in repair depots. I mean, obviously you want these things ship shape. Don't want them breaking down on the field. So it's a, man, really? Aww. Damn. Oh. Nope. There we go. I don't like that at all, to be perfectly honest. All right. I wonder why it's doing that. That is so irritating. You guys see blue Vosh. I don't see blue Vosh. That's not what I see. I guess I should like okay, what are we cutting to? Sorry, what an unexpected coughing fit. Anyway, the point I was getting at is that when you buy military equipment, it's also a long-term and ongoing, you know, investment that doesn't actually pay out because we don't get anything from overfunding the military. I am very deeply concerned about this, to say the very least. Yeah, you know, I won't say the very least, actually. I think I'll say the very most. Holy shit, we are so fucked as a country. This is fucking insane. We are the wealthiest fucking country on Earth, there is no country in the history of this species that has ever commanded a greater degree of material resources. And we are handling this crisis worse than every other country on the planet. Well, there are a few countries that are doing worse to us, but none of them are in a comparable state economically. We're doing worse than fucking Brazil. We're doing worse than Brazil. Unbelievable. How? And find me another country, by the way, with a comparable level of wealth, particularly per capita, that is facing this kind of eviction crisis. What the fuck? How? 59% of rentier households in West Virginia? How is that? Okay, the camera just doesn't want to work. All right, you can sit there for a second. How? How does that work? I don't understand. It's legitimately insane to me. This is what ends civilizations. You realize that, right? This is what ends civilizations. So many people in America, I think, are emotionally incapable of understanding that our country is less than 300 years old. There are countries that lasted 3 times the length of America that fell. Rome was around for, like, what, a millennia? If you count the rest, the Holy Roman Empire as well. I mean, they were the thrust of that civilization was around for many multiple times what America has been around for. But people talk about America like we're the end of history. Oh, the Holy Roman Empire doesn't have anything to do with the Roman Empire, but it sounds similar. The Holy Roman Empire lasted 1,000 years. What about the original Roman Empire? Yeah, well, China's been around for like 4,000 years. The Byzantine Empire was the one who kept going. History's not my strong suit. The point I'm laboriously trying to get to here is America is a young country. People treat this country like it's a universal constant, but we're being left behind. And the worst thing is, right now, if America fell, if this country became a failed state, if it collapsed, if it broke apart into several different states, if something like that happened to it, you know what the Republicans would say? Or what the conservatives 100 years from now would say? They would say diversity and immigration destroyed our country. 100%. The historical revisionists of the future would then look to the history of this country and go, oh yeah, well, there were a bunch of Mexicans that came in, and trans people started using the bathrooms they identified as, and that would be it. That would be the extent of their analysis. Be something about degeneracy. No! We have mismanaged our resources to a historical degree. It is unbelievable how incompetent we are at maintaining even a passing standard of civilizational competence. It is unbelievable. Some of these states, 50, 60% of rentier households facing eviction because we didn't even have the political will to dedicate a fraction of our GDP to making sure our citizens don't fucking die during a pandemic we had no federal response to. This country disgusts me. This country is the civilizational equivalent of somebody who buys shrink-wrapped food from supermarkets, takes one bite out of every item, and then throws it onto the sidewalk. The mismanagement of resources, the callousness is unbelievable to me. And we could fix it with even a slightly, I'm not even going to talk about it. We don't even need to talk about socialism. Even with a fucking competent government in a capitalist society, even with a competent government, we could be untouchable. We could be the shining city on the hill. We could be the beacon of light that shines across the planet. Everyone in every other country could look up at us, and we wouldn't be perfect, and we'd still even be capitalist. But at least we would run our shit well. At least we would dedicate the resources we've obtained by raping the rest of the world effectively. But we can't even manage that. If it's astonishing to me how unwilling the people who run this country are to see it succeed. I don't know what this is. It's not the weakness of democracy. I will tell you that. This is 1,000 institutional failings weighing systemically now on our ability to move forward. The biggest one by far is our lack of education. The biggest one by far. Everything else stems from that. And where does that come from? Well, that in large part comes from corporations being financially incentivized to provide you a small piece of the pie when it comes to your education, to strip and streamline college education until it's just job training, which leaves you without the critical thinking necessary to understand meaningfully why there are problems in our country and what can be done to fix them. And because people are poorly educated, it's difficult for them to realize when they're being propagandized at. So our media, which used to have federal restrictions on the degree of truthfulness that they were allowed to publish, there used to be actual FCC guidelines holding news sites and news publications accountable for misinformation they publish. Now we don't, of course. Those were lobbied out. And people lack the critical thinking, of course, because we don't teach any real, useful, meaningful, introspective skills in college or in schools to understand when they're being lied to. And now we have a reality divide in this country. We don't have one reality. We have, pardon me for borrowing an old term, alternative facts. We have a reality divide. The Republicans and the conservatives and the skeptics and the classical liberals, who all seem to align with the conservatives and the Republicans, do not understand reality as it exists. This isn't just an ideological difference. Yesterday, a video published by Breitbart on Facebook saying that hydrochloroquine was an effective treatment to COVID-19 and masks were not necessary got 18 million views in 6 hours. 18 million views in 6 hours. Produced by professional propagandists who wear masks when they go outside, by the way. Like Trump, who wouldn't wear a mask for his speeches but would wear it behind the curtains and was ashamed to have pictures taken of him because even he's not stupid enough to risk his mid-70s-year-old life on the bullshit he sells to the public. The reality divide in this country is, I don't know what is to be done about it. Even if Trump loses, even if there's not a Republican in office for the next 20 years, there will be a constituency of over 100 million people in this country who are so divorced from reality as to effectively be schizophrenic. A massive, systemically incentivized, turmeric mental illness in this country. And again, I'm not leaving Democrats off the hook here, okay? Fuck them. Fuck the liberals, too. But I am tired, as a leftist, of feeling like I get clout for pretending the Democratic Party is even comparable to the death cult that is the modern-day Republican Party. I'm tired of this trend that all the lefties, that's how they get their cred. They do the both sides are the same thing. I'm tired of pretending. It's not true. It hasn't been true for a long time. There's a difference. There is a big fucking difference. And you would know it if any of the fucking lefties who peddle that shit actually spend time interacting with Trump supporters in real life. Because holy shit, there is a big goddamn difference. between your cool weed-smoking mom who thinks trans people are all right but doesn't really get what's happening in Bolivia, and people who legitimately think that Trump is fighting a covert war against the deep state. You can't fathom the difference between these two groups. They're not even comparable. This is how civilizations fall. It is from internal weaknesses resulting from contradictions in their function, which prevent them from being able to adapt and change with the times. I'm not a big lover of America as a concept, but I have a feeling I'm not going to love whatever comes after America as a concept much either. So as long as I live in this country, I would like to see this country perpetuated such to the place where it can be improved. Ideally. And we need to take this shit seriously if we're going to be able to do that. This eviction crisis represents an opportunity for us to maybe help some of these people understand that it is not just dipshits in Washington fucking them over, but a systemic and concerted effort on the part of Trump and the Republican Party to annihilate this country's defenses against COVID-19. And then once we get them on that, we can talk to them about how, well, actually neither side would have really ever been able to fix it because capitalism and da-da-da. That's the hope. I wonder how many of these people will be evicted. I wonder how many of them are going to join the protests. You know what they say? Everyone is just 3 missed meals away from a revolution. And it's true. That's one nice thing about life. It doesn't matter how many trillions of dollars they pour into advertisements and propaganda, military funding. 3 missed meals. That's all it takes. People will not starve quietly. They never, ever will. So on the cusp of this, I am sincerely hopeful that as few people are hurt as possible, that those who are hurt recognize why they were hurt, and that those who are not hurt recognize why they came so close to being hurt. I hope we are all capable of providing for those who need it. Mutual aid is going to be very, very important over the next few months, over the next few years. Collectively gathering food, distributing it. Have you seen those videos of police and feds raiding medic tents and pepper gassing all the medic equipment and food and stuff like that because they want you to die? Well, when you buy a bunch of lentils and canned beans for your local neighborhood distribution, make sure to keep it out of the hands of the feds, okay? Like how they'll slash water bottles left at the border crossing. So the people who try to come into America for asylum don't arrive and contribute to our economy, but instead die in the desert. You know. Anyway. Sorry that my cam died. I don't know why it's doing that. Toss a coin to your streamer. Oh, viewers plenty. Anyway, we'll make what we can of this, and we'll do our best to fix it. And by we, I do, of course, mean the entirety of the progressive America, not this stream chat exclusively. I love you guys. I don't think that us specifically are quite capable of addressing this literal near extinction level event for American democracy. But if you want to try and do it all on your own, I won't stop you.